Newcastle reaffirmed its vows of undying affection to the grand old lady of theatres at a ceremony at City Hall. It's been a lifelong affair since the Civic was opened in 1929 and now a labour of love as its $12 million restoration nears completion. The curtain goes up in November on a play specially commissioned for the opening. Titled A Rare Jewel, the 2-hour spectacular will reflect the Civic's history and place in the city's cultural heritage. So for a person who's lived in Newcastle all their life, been along to the Civic many times and who'll be sitting in the audience on the night, what do you hope they'll be picking up from it?
I hope that they'll go, oh, I remember the movies. And I remember here, I saw The Robe here, yes, the movies. I saw Pinocchio here. I remember the musicals of the 70s. But I also hope that what's added is another time that says, yeah, that was another good night out.
But that's just where the entertainment begins, with acts such as an Edith Piaf tribute, Grace Knight, John Williamson, the Deltones, Vince Jones, Dame Edna and Richard Clapton to follow for a month-long festival. Outstanding Hunter operas, plays, drama and dance groups will also perform. Hamming it up at City Hall with just a taste of things to come, Newcastle's own Curvettes. There'll be more than 60 acts performing during the festival. Organisers are hoping to seat audiences of 50,000 people. The entertainment will also spill out into Civic Plaza with open-air shows. Andrew Lobb, NBN News.
Museum, art gallery, tourist office.
The New England is the national highway passing through the Hunter, but its huge workload takes its toll on the road's surface. Singleton councillor Ray Considine is leading the fight for an immediate upgrade.
The New England highway, as you can see, is an absolute disgrace at the moment. It is patches on patches. The RTA are only spending what money's been allocated to them. They're doing the best that they can, but the motorists of New South Wales and Australia are absolutely suffering because of the condition of the road.
Serious accidents on the stretch west of Branxton have highlighted several reasons behind a demand for dual carriageway between Maitland and Muswellbrook.
The major problem is down there, that with the accident they closed the highway to all for 6 hours. We were fortunate, we had an alternate means of skirting around it, probably about 23 to 25 kilometres out of their way. No semi-trailers were allowed to move, but on this stretch of road that we see behind us here now, if we have a major accident there, we stop the coal fields, we stop all freight in New South Wales.
Another major concern for Singleton Council is the increasing amount of traffic the Newcastle-Sydney freeway is already generating, and it's expected to increase further when the F3 is completed. Singleton Council isn't going it alone in its campaign to have the New England Highway upgraded. Moves are already under industry and local government associations. Gary Blair, NBN News. Work is now underway rehabilitating the Belmore Road Control Bank on the northern side of Maitland. Hunter Catchment Management Trust started the work to replace and repair mesh, rock training walls and bank improvements to stabilise the levee. To continue the flood mitigation work being done by the Trust, Maitland MP Peter Blackmore this afternoon presented officials with a cheque for over $1 million during an inspection of the Bulwarra project. Both state and federal governments have funded the flood mitigation work, which is also repairing damage caused as a result of storms early last year, which saw some parts of Morpeth inundated by floodwaters. Some of the latest funding allocation will go towards investigation and repair work on damaged riverbanks affected by flooding.
Military honours today for a young man rated as one of the RAF's best. In Tuncurry, friends and family said their last goodbye to 28-year-old Flight Lieutenant Mark Cairns Cowan. The Navigator's F-111 from No. 1 Squadron at Ambley near Brisbane crashed on a low-level night training flight at Guyra near Armidale. The pilot, Flight Lieutenant Jeremy McNess, was also killed in the accident. Today, a group of F-111s made a special fly past. Mark Cairns Cowan was a well-respected young man. He was to have travelled to the United States to work with a new consignment of F-111s for the Air Force. Peter Ryan, NBN News. Each weekend across Australia, more than 2,000 people take the plunge. Enthusiasts say skydiving is safe when performed properly, but they admit it can be safer. Last year, 3 people died in parachuting accidents in Australia.
An AAD in 2 of those cases may have saved those guys' lives.
An AAD is an automatic activation device, a small electronic unit which fits in under the emergency chute in the pack. Set at ground level, it can monitor altitude. When the skydiver hits 250 metres above land, it automatically releases the chute. If a skydiver blacks out or for some reason freezes, the chute still opens. An AAD costs $1,600. A 21% sales tax makes it $2,000. Skydivers are angry that the government should tax a life-saving device. They are calling for the slug to be dropped.
To save one life, if it was to cost the government, $500,000, no big deal really.
The school building dates from the 60s, and for years people have been suggesting that the stark brick columns needed a lift. But it was no ordinary redecoration job that was decided on. The school children themselves became involved in hand-making 600 ceramic tiles depicting the features of the Camden Haven, the coastal stretch around Laurelton and the Pacific Highway, the 3 major local features as they were, are now and how they possibly will be. And it was a community effort.
The parents worked with small groups of students over the time period, so it was initiated by parents, and the work with the children was done by parents, and it was just a really good cooperative effort between the parents and students of Kendall Central School.
So pleased was Deputy Principal Glenn Pleasance with the result that he decided to enter the project in a culture and heritage competition mounted by the Hastings Council. Kendall took out the award for schools with more than 200 pupils.
It could easily be described as a Falcons 3-point feast. Everybody had their eye in right from the start. Al Green created some inspirational play, prompting suggestions. He's got a few years left in him yet. The Falcons were totally committed to defence, each player aware of the other's every move. The sellout crowd were again on their feet for the 4th quarter. With just 24 seconds to go, the Giants were only 3 points off tying up the game until Everett Stevens was fouled and pocketed a winning margin.
About 80 drivers let their hair down on the track at the Wingham Sporting Complex. The competitors came from across the country, bracing in classes from novice to international. The top drivers were topping speeds of 100 kilometres an hour, and on the tight and sometimes congested track, that made for some close calls. About 600 fans looked on as the racers took their 100cc machines around the track. The national titles are held once every 4 years in New South Wales. The Manning Valley Club has hosted it twice in recent times, highlighting how strong the sport is in the region.
Yesterday's 1-point loss left plenty of frustration in the young Knights, and this morning they were venting their feelings. They weren't really thrown in anger, just a friendly test of strength. Andrew Johns wanted to settle a long-running dispute about his balance, while Steve Crowe displayed his Cossack bear impersonation. Coach Robert Finch says the day after a grand final loss is a mix of emotions.
Besides the heavy heads, there's probably a bit of an empty feeling inside. It's probably a little bit easier to deal with it when you get beat by 10 or 15, but one is a very disappointing sort of thing.
Last night when the players arrived home, their supporters made sure they felt like champions. Champions and without the cup, but still 1993 grand finalists. Hours earlier, the Knights looked certainties to take the title, scoring a try in the first 2 minutes and making 2 attempts at a field goal. But a fumbled ball and a more experienced Bears outfit beat them by the narrowest of margins. When they gathered at the end of the game, not a word was spoken.
There was no reaction at all. They were very down, obviously. It's something that you can't explain, the emptiness, and I felt terribly sorry for the lot of them.
But they have 5 weeks off before training starts all over again.
Rules against smoke emitting from exhaust for more than 10 seconds were introduced nearly 20 years ago. Soon after, motorists were issued with fines. But some drivers are still ignoring the regulations. Last year, more than 2,600 were caught and fined $96. Despite the penalty, in most cases the problem remains. But from today, Environment Protection Authority officers will be on the lookout in a crackdown operation.
Basically, any vehicle that is emitting visible smoke for more, or visible emissions from its exhaust for more than 10 seconds.
Motorists will still be tracked down through their registered number plates, but have the option to escape the fine.
Now they'll get a letter saying you have a smoky vehicle, please fix it, and you have 30 days to fix it. If you don't fix it in those 30 days with appropriate documentation from a licensed mechanic, then you'll get your fine.
Drivers of commercial vehicles aren't so lucky, they'll be fined on the spot. According to the EPA, the 6-month trial is aimed at prevention rather than punishment.
Well, the purpose behind it is really to drive very much at the environmental outcome rather than chasing the technical breach and just hassling people and slugging them with a fine for that technical breach. What we're really about is improving the environment, improving air quality.
Melinda Smith, NBN News. Newcastle's biggest festival has been given a facelift. The new image has lured sponsorship from local and national companies, investing an estimated $150,000. Details of the 10-day event were launched at City Hall today. Committee President Del Saunders says hundreds of events have been planned.
Not only in Civic Park but all over the city, so everyone's involved. Crafts, sports, music, cultural activities, they're everywhere.
It's a festival designed not only for the locals.
It brings people into the city, to Civic Park and the foreshore and around the city generally, and all of those separate functions that take place at Matara time bring our community together. We always have a great time.
There's a bit of a facelift for this year's Matara compared to others. Are you These gentlemen have just graduated from the Gutbuster program, a custom-designed course aimed at reducing oversized bellies by changing eating habits.
I weighed 195, I'm down 181 now. I've lost 14 kilos.
About 12 kilo, so I'm very happy with it, and not really, I've tried other diets and that, nothing's worked.
The best one I've ever been on. Best diet? Well, you're not on a diet actually, it's just the way you eat.
By eating more foods high in fibre, reducing the amount of fats and stepping up the exercise, keeping one goal in sight has also improved general health.
To get rid of that pot belly, and with that goes the heart disease risk and risk of diabetes and other diseases too.
For some participants, the busting of a gut has changed their lives.
Without it, it's a lot better. I can wear my pants where they should be and not down around my knees. The stomach's not in the way anymore.
What made you make the decision that something had to be done?
Felt uncomfortable at work driving trucks, and the stomach was getting in my road at golf, and marvellous, done well.
So what's the change now?
Well, the golf hasn't improved much, but I'll work on that.
Melinda Smith, NBN News. Changeover time for Scouts of the 1st Cardiff Group who've spent the last 24 hours pole sitting. Next year they hope to attend the National Scouts Jamboree in Perth and are looking for sponsors to help send them on their way. But for now they're staying put with the aid of a few home comforts.
I've got the TV and the Nintendo, that doesn't work, but we try getting that going. Got a table up there and...
Got a bit colder up here, but it was warmer downstairs.
It was fun and real comfortable, but you think you might fall down, but you don't.
Necessities like food and water are hauled up, and when you've got to go...
We're only allowed to go off the scaffolding just to go to the toilet, that's all.
The Scouts will be manning the tower day and night until Friday.
When Jack Skopevsky's son arrived at the family's Toronto takeaway shop around 6:30, he knew something was wrong. He found his father trussed helplessly on the floor, tape over his mouth, ropes binding his hands and feet. The family had been putting in long hours since it took over the business just 3 weeks ago. It was about 2:30 this morning when Mr Skopevsky was taking out the garbage that he was confronted by two men wearing balaclavas, one armed with a handgun, the other with a knife. The pair forced the shop owner back inside where they took his wallet containing a large amount of money. They also took off his shoes and socks, apparently looking for hidden cash. Mr Skopevsky was uninjured but shaken by his ordeal. Andrew Lobb, NBN News. Hunter Valley Rewinds specialises in the repair and servicing of electric motors used in mining, industry and commerce. From its Belmont workshop with a staff of just 24, the business has branched out to the United States and Singapore. Last night, Joint Managing Directors Chris Griffiths and Michael Davis were in Sydney to accept from the Minister of Small Business, Ray Chappell, numerous awards for quality management, service and training.
We've been able to achieve quite a deal of success by promoting the quality of our organisation, quality of our products, quality of our services and the quality of our people.
The company is highly regarded for its quality assurances to customers. This has doubled sales, productivity and trebled profit over the past few years. Hunter Valley Rewinds is now exporting quality control software plans by using a computer network which allows clients to look in on jobs in progress.
Whilst I was in Las Vegas in June of this year, I actually was able to log into the system and see the results of a test on an electric motor that we were performing here in Belmont, New South Wales, Australia, being presented to me on a computer screen in Las Vegas, Nevada, US of A. That's the technology that we've been able to design and we're now marketing internationally.
Heading the local speedsters will be 25-year-old Steve Legg. Legg won the championship in '91 and after a disappointing 12 months is back with a more powerful and technically superior boat. Legg's new high-tech approach started through his job. He's an electronics technician by trade, as well as NBN's computer whiz, but a speed freak at heart.
It's just something to do on the weekend, mate. Keeps me busy. It's excellent, and like you said, the sensation's excellent.
In early testing, Legg has had his boat sitting comfortably on 250 kilometres an hour. The extra speed has forced him to spend plenty of time practising his cornering technique.
The first corner is usually where the race is won and lost. It's always a battle to get in there and get around and out of it really quickly.
The two-day carnival starts just west of the Fitzgerald Bridge at Raymond Terrace on Sunday, and spectator entry is free. As it stands at the moment, Lake Macquarie itself is the area's only existing world-class facility. Olympic competitors could arrive tomorrow and begin sailing, and that's about all the area could provide. City Mayor John Kilpatrick believes that's not enough and wants something done about it.
I've been to Wollongong and I've seen some of their facilities down there. They're often running well ahead of us, and I don't think we've got time in the Hunter region to sit around thinking about it for any longer. In there quickly as a region, as quickly as we can, and get what we can here for the benefit of the area.
Councillor Kilpatrick has put forward a few suggestions for discussion and stresses these ideas are definitely not set in concrete, merely projects to think about. He says it's time local government stops sitting on its hands and waiting for facilities and money to be handed out, and wants all the Hunter councils to combine for the bid.
I think that's probably one of our failings in the past. We've got a magic area and we haven't been out selling what facilities that we have, and there are facilities like the hockey facilities in town that are world class, and we should be making that known already to the countries of the world.
Opposition spokesman on sport and member for Charlestown Richard Face will head up the committee and says these projects could easily be financed by all the local MPs pooling their annual grants and forgetting about small handouts to local associations.
I've been in Parliament 21 years, you can't please everybody all the time, and I believe it's in the best interest of the region, and if I sincerely believe it, and I base that not on my emotions, on what I've been able to collate in the way of information, I believe it's the right step and I'm willing to take the backlash.
Mr Face says there's no way we could miss out on foreign money in the games lead-up.
Quite frankly, there won't be enough athletic complexes, there won't be enough pools in New South Wales or Australia for that matter, if those nations that want to come out here and acclimatise. We're not going to get any of the training and the warm-ups. That'll all happen in Sydney, and we've known that from the start, but there are a lot of spin-offs we can get in this region.
Other Hunter councils will be invited to attend the first meeting of the Lake Macquarie Group early next month. Darren Curtis, NBN News.
With all the recent dinosaur hype, it's been no trouble getting these children to learn.
Well, we're trying to teach the children a little bit about the environment, but in such a fun and sneaky way that they don't even know they're being taught.
The children aged between 6 and 12 have been involved in a number of activities, including observation walks through the wetlands, collecting natural materials and craft making. While the children are learning a little about extinct dinosaurs, they are also learning about living dinosaurs.
And that's, of course, your crocodiles, your birds, which are the closest relative, which seems a little bit strange, but they are the closest relative to the dinosaurs, and, of course, our tortoises.
70 children are booked in for the second Living Dinosaur session tomorrow. Other theme days during the holidays include Feathers and Flight and Frogs and Tortoises. Lisa Upton, NBN News.
The Hunter River has been closed to fishing over the winter months. To test if conditions are ideal for prawn fishermen to return, fisheries officers today supervised a trial haul from 9 sections of the waterway between Fullerton Cove and Raymond Terrace. At a lunchtime meeting in Raymond Terrace, results of the trawl were given to the 35 operators endorsed to work the river.
The fishermen themselves have agreed that the actual size of the prawn was suitable for an opening, and the quantity put to the vote, and we've come up with an opening date of next Tuesday.
There was a lively discussion as the democratic process to determine when work would resume was exercised.
You got it. You got it on the last meeting, exactly the same thing. It's a 40 kilos you open and forget about the rest.
But the process used by the Hunter River Fishermen's Association for prawning is being closely monitored by the fishing industry.
They have a gentleman's agreement to delay the opening of the fishery if prawns are of an inappropriate size to take, and that increases the value of the fishery as a whole.
After receiving their permits, prawning on the Hunter begins at 6 next Tuesday morning. The plan under consideration will see local councils, the owners of stormwater drains, given power to prosecute people who foul waterways. Rubbish removed from Throsby Creek is one example of urban pollution, but under the government's proposal, householders could be fined $600 on the spot for their contribution to the problem. Throsby Landcare Chairman John Sutton believes the plan is worthy of consideration.
I'd like to see the state government come up with a more integrated approach to it. I think it also involves the necessity for education. I think a lot of people simply don't realise the impact that, for example, washing a car on a roadway has on the urban stormwater system and where that pollution is likely to end up. And it ends up, of course, in places like Throsby Creek.
Meantime, rubbish finding its way into the Hunter River has raised the ire of Water Conservation Minister George Souris. The Upper Hunter parliamentarian has appealed for people to stop the Hunter catchment as rubbish dumps. What is causing concern? The dumping may be contributing to high levels of bacteria in the Hunter River. Trial sampling by the Department of Water Resources at Singleton in January found unacceptably high levels of bacteria in the river. The cause of the problem is still being investigated. Gary Blair, NBN News.
Remember the days when speed was measured in miles per hour, when petrol was just super and the Ford Cortina won Bathurst. This was the era of which Tanilba Bay man Graham Brown has fond memories, in particular his introduction to the Cortina.
It was the first car that I learnt to drive on. I got my licence on when I was 16, 17. My father owned one many years ago.
Graham bought his 1966 Mark I GT Cortina 3.5 years ago. He's been lovingly rebuilding it with the help of son Clayton ever since. Sydney Car Club, Graham was one of 3 people asked to drive their Cortinas in a lap of honour at Bathurst this Sunday. The event, to celebrate the 30th anniversary of a GT Cortina's first win at Bathurst, Graham regards as a real privilege.
Sure, it was a big buzz. Dream come true.
Graham says his Cortina, which is all original except for twin carburetors and 6-inch tyres, can reach speeds of up to 110 miles an hour. Although he doesn't expect to reach these during his honour lap, as he wants to relish the moment on track at Bathurst.
It's going to be a real buzz to go around the track before the main race, for sure. You know, I think there'd be a queue 1,000 long standing behind me waiting to do the same thing.
Catherine Lamond, NBN News.
Submarine, telescope and air. These are some of Edward Milan's works on display at the Newcastle Region Art Gallery.
I suppose a lot of my work is about looking, and by saying looking, I mean not just opening your eyes and looking at things, but looking at things, seeing things, trying to understand things, trying to figure out things.
Edward Milan graduated from the University of Newcastle in 1988 and has since been working full-time welding his steel creations. These reflect the choices we all face in a technological world. While Edward's works come from stimulus around him, John Morris draws his inspiration from memory.
They're metaphors for journeys. They have maybe a haunting mood about them, and that's evoked by the landscape.
The romantic landscape artist uses a lot of dark colouring in his paintings, which is offset with bursts of bright colour. John also studied at the University of Newcastle and has worked as an art teacher in the area. The exhibition will last 1 month.
Fisherman's Village is being established on land owned by the Moffat family at Swan Bay on the western shore of Port Stephens. The development is a budget resort comprising community facilities and 40 units which are being sold under a Torres title arrangement. Work on the project could be completed ahead of schedule.
Well, we may adjust our timetable a little further forward, Gary. We originally anticipated completion March, but we've had quite a few sales in the past couple of days, and God willing, we'll get it done before Christmas.
The village site was a hive of activity today, with about 100 people on hand for the official launch by Patterson MP Bob Horn. Total cost of the project is expected to be $3 million.
Walk worthily in the service of our nation of Australia. Pride and gratitude for the sacrifices of faithful Australians who in embracing and fighting under the Lord in all our doings with your most gracious favour, and further us with your continual help, that in all our works begun, continued and ended in